Hello everybody, welcome back to the Pixel Therapy channel. And I'm just doing this video because, as you all know, Automobilista 2 has just released their GT3 pack. Now I tried this GT3 pack today in the morning, and I jumped inside the AMG Mercedes-Benz and did a 20-minute race around the Nordschleife, as you can see. And I'm going to be honest with you, I had a blast. I mean, the racing was close, and the cars felt amazing. They felt like what you would expect from a GT3 car. The track detail for the new Nürburgring was also it was sound, it was solid, and yeah, I really had a good time. But then, amidst all of that excitement and that enjoyment of the racing, it got me thinking when am I going to race this again? And will I actually get to race this with a full grid of people rather than doing it with AI as I was doing it here? And it really got me worried and thinking to myself did Automobilista come to the GT3 party late? Now the reason I'm asking this is because they've come in and released this pack in a saturated market, in my opinion. I mean, Assetto Corsa Competizione, iRacing, and R-Factor 2 have pretty much, over the period of COVID and even slightly before, established themselves as competent simulators for both multiplayer esports racing and even league racing. Right now, almost all the league races around the world have got some form of Assetto Corsa Competizione league going. iRacing is a beast of its own, and that is one that you can actually maybe put aside as an anomaly because it is a service and it has its diehard followers. So for this GT3 pack that was done by AMS2 to be successful, it would not only have to be fantastic and drive great, which it does, but it would also have to be good enough to deter and convince people who are already settled in to ACC, the original Assetto Corsa, and maybe a few in R-Factor 2, to convince them that it is worth switching to and playing, even though they are currently established in what they are doing. I feel that when AMS2 came out, it initially stated that it was going to focus on the Brazilian racing scene, and that involved the stock cars. And I thought to myself, that's good, that is unique, that is going to be maybe something that people who are in league racing might think to myself, I can't race that anywhere else, so I'm going to actually get my mates together and we could do this particular type of race. Much like the way Race Room has focused on its DTM series, where those are the types of cars that you get. Now I find that with this GT3 pack, as solid as it is and as great as the car handling is, they've improved the physics, I really do not see people switching away from their Assetto Corsa Competizione, their original Assetto Corsa League races, and even the die-hard R-Factor 2 fans thinking to themselves, actually, I'm going to drive this over RF2. I don't know. This is just my opinion, and I'm quite curious to hear what you guys think regarding this particular move that has been done. Now, having said that, how does the car actually handle? How is the GT3 pack? Well, like I have already said, I found it solid. I found that the car itself, which I was driving, the Mercedes-Benz, the handling was quite good. And what I actually did was I drove the race for about 20 minutes, but then I switched to the original Assetto Corsa, and I drove the exact same car on the exact same track with that sim. And then after that, I moved on to ACC, and I again picked the Mercedes, and I again picked the Nürburgring, and I drove that as well. And I did the same with R-Factor 2. And what I found was that they are all different, obviously, because there were different physics models, and so the cars handled differently. But all of them are quite popular because they are very good at communicating what the car is doing with the force feedback, and everything seems to make sense regarding the physics, whether you lose control, you have oversteer, and when that happens, especially compared with your inputs. I found that with AMS2, there was a really good feel for the load shifting on braking. And it was actually quite interesting because I was using a direct drive wheel, so like when you hit the brakes, you could feel the force feedback letting you know that weight shift in the braking. But if you pushed even harder and the ABS kicked in, that also brought in a different sensation as well, which is quite different, for example, from ACC, whereby when you brake, you don't necessarily get that initial load shift in the force feedback, but you do get that distinct kick of the ABS. So there was a little nuance with the AMS GT3 field and that force feedback that I enjoyed. Another thing that I realized was with the GT3 pack in AMS2, the slip angle. The slip angle was less distinct compared to, say, ACC. So for example, when you're driving with ACC, you get this spring-like effect that is meant to represent the chassis flex, and on that you've got the bite with the force feedback. And then the moment you go over the traction of the car and you're losing traction, that bite gets lost, and then you get this light sling, a sort of like springy sensation that you get with the weight transfer. And then when you ease up and then the traction comes back, that bite sort of comes back, and you know you're back within the limit of the tires. With AMS2, it was slightly different. Rather than have this distinct sensation of having a bite and then the bite sort of go away, what you had was almost like a continuous degradation in the sensation of bite during your slip angle. So if you think of it like a diagonal slope, where it was most intense, and then you still had it as you were losing grip, but then it became less and less in a gradual way, and you knew you were still in control of the car. You could still play with it when you're within that sensation. So I mean, this had pros and it had cons. Like, I found that I could overdrive the car and still pull it back. It didn't do wonders for my lap time, but at no point did I feel like I'd lost the car. And it wasn't until I got to that bottom end of that gradual slope of traction that I actually completely lost the vehicle, and it started to spin, and then I'd have to counter steer and bring it back. I feel that this is sort of like a remnant of the physics engine with Project Card 2, but what they've done is, what used to feel like this washy, sloppy thing, they've tightened it up, and they've used that sort of informative aspect of the physics engine, and they've brought it back to actually allow you to play with it, and it gives you useful information. So an example is that feeling that you get in the front end when you actually hit your brakes, and how that is actually quite distinct from the ABS kicking in, and also it amplifies based on how hard you're braking based on the speed. Project Cars 2 never had that definition. It never had that sophistication within the force feedback. So I love the way the sim drives. I think this GT pack is fantastic. It is different from R Factor 2. It is different from ACC, and it is different from the original Assetto Corsa. But that's not a bad thing, because it still gives you information regarding what the car is doing with the force feedback, and it makes sense. So that's what I enjoyed about it. But again, it's coming in a saturated market, and I'm not too sure that as much as people will enjoy doing a lap or two, it's actually going to take off the way I believe it should take off. Can this actually be a contender to, say, R Factor 2 and ACC and the original Assetto Corsa? Yes, maybe. But I do wonder if maybe they shouldn't have focused on a GT3 pack and maybe picked something slightly different. But unfortunately, that is the sim racing environment at the moment. Is GT3 cars are extremely popular, and I can see why they went that way, to try and drum up interest within the sim. Clearly, the content is lacking compared to the more established sims like ACC. They don't have certain licenses like Ferraris. I think the only vehicles they have in here are the McLaren, the Porsche, and the Mercedes that I was driving. But that's going to come with time, and as the sim matures like the others, it will get that content and it will get those tracks. So yeah, I think that's something you guys just have a think about. Let me know what you think, whether we do need another GT3 pack with another sim, or maybe do you believe that AMS2 should have stuck with what they wanted to do regarding the Brazilian racing scene, and maybe focused on that a little more. So I'll just end this video with me spinning off there towards the end when I was testing and playing around with overdriving and that traction, and yeah, please like, subscribe if you like the video, and let me know. Thank you for watching. Cheers. Bye.